I was part of a recent WONS workshop, and look, I don't have a sort of formal presentation or anything today, and the intention is just to provide, I guess, a broad sort of overview and summary of the the current state of play and the outcomes of that meeting. There's quite a bit of discussion that's actually not been sort of released yet, so the intention is just to give a bit of a broad sort of overview of where things are at. So in the weed space, the last round of WONS nominations and declaration, that's weeds of national significance, was some time ago, back in 2012, and so more recently in 2023 in June, the Environmental Invasive Committee endorsed the National Established Weeds Priority Framework and associated implementation plan for, I guess, the next round of delivery of weeds of national significance. And I guess a major change compared to the previous model, as part of this new framework, is the incorporation of not only WONS, weeds of national significance, but also WINS, so weed issues of national significance, um, and also National Established Weed Action List. And so a couple of different components there that, I guess, broaden the suite of potential weeds that to be considered, and also the activities that may be that highlighted as for action under that framework and plan. So the workshop was held in December, attended by around about 45 people from DAF, DQ, states and territories, CSIRO, unis, Biosecurity, Landscapes, Airlands Environment Centre, and others. And the outcome of the workshop was intended to basically update the assessment process and refine the nomination questions around the invasiveness, potential spread, impacts, and feasibility of control associated with the selection criteria for WONS nominations. And so ultimately, in a nutshell, I think the indication is that there's going to be some significant improvements to that assessment process. And some of those, just highlighting a few, would be increased recognition of transformer species and the impact of fire. So those that have the ability to completely alter ecosystems, and obvious flow-on effects there, both to culture and the environment. The inclusion of health impacts, and so whether that's apuntioids, people being prickled and those sorts of things, or whether it's allergies, or a variety of different mental health impacts, etc. As well as land use criteria and other probably more detailed components of in relation to where those weeds are being considered in relation to their feasibility of control, for example. And so, in addition, it's likely that Climatch, just a standard program that probably many of you are familiar with, will be used to assist in determining that potential distribution. And also one of the major changes, I guess, in relation to First Nations people and impacts associated questions in relation to traditional owners and the cultural impacts, which previously had one or two questions in an existing suite of questions. And it was decided that really needs to be given more recognition and teased out due to the complexities of those impacts. So cultural impacts will be separated out and have its own section, and they'll obviously be associated consultation with traditional owners and First Nations across the country in relation to those sections. Also, another addition was identified the need for consideration of introduction pathways in the feasibility of control, because in its own right, Climatch, doesn't actually include the ability for a weed to arrive at that site. And probably relevant to all pests, and weeds obviously is consideration if climate change scenarios should be included, and if so, what predicted climate change scenario should be incorporated into that potential distribution modelling, for example. So those are some of, I guess, the major sort of changes compared to the previous program. And I guess more broadly, it was identified there's a need, obviously, for the selection process to be transparent, and we nutted out, I guess, some of that process around some initial shortlisting sort of questions being used to reduce the number of expressions of interest that actually go through to what will be a panel of experts who will conduct the full assessments on any nominations for weeds of national significance. So that where to from here, I guess that there's a couple of workshops planned over the next couple of weeks to outline the current process and discuss first steps and nominations, and also First Nations involvement, and also communication products and other discussions will also need to be had around the weighting of criteria, because that can be quite critical in determining what weeds do actually result in WONS status. And there will be some guidance material developed to assist people with nominations, because there was recognition that that we don't want a heap of people doing a huge amount of work if there's not not much really a great likelihood that those weeds will actually be either progress to the next level or actually be recognised as WONS. So in terms of timelines, I guess the expected timelines, and these are just indicative, but around about March this year, it's expected that there'll be some testing of the methodology once finalised as part of these next couple of workshops. After which, in April, the expectation is that expressions of interest will be opened, and those this time round will be open to community and government, which differs from previously. I understand that it was limited to sort of government agencies and organisations and such. With an announcement, a final announcement expected around early 2025. So there hasn't been any final decision around the specific sort of number of WONS that will actually be approved and therefore funded at this stage. So there's quite a few things that are still a little bit, I guess, to be determined, but it's certainly progressing along well, and it's been a long time between nominations, so a good opportunity for people to raise what may have emerged as significant weed issues over the last decade. So that's sort of, I guess, where we're at. Happy to attempt to answer any questions if people have them. Feel free to pop your hand up or yell out. If we've got time, that is, Justin. Sorry.
Yeah, we're running down to the line on this bit, but look, thanks heaps, Troy, and I'd encourage you either to reach out to Troy or through us on any questions. I'll just reiterate the importance of the work that Troy is doing, and I'll be re-engaging in that process again for the next meetings, just in terms of making sure that the weeds that you're working on are being considered as a weed of national significance, because the funding and resourcing implications for that subsequently are really critical. So this is the foundational work that you do, hopefully that pays off in the short to medium term. So Troy, thanks for your contribution for that as well.
Yeah, my pleasure, Justin. And just to add, I guess, and those will probably read in the chat, but an obvious driver for me in involvement is in relation to my role as the Buffel Grass State Coordinator. So certainly WONS nomination is something that we'll be pursuing, and due to obviously the impacts on biodiversity and culture and human safety. So happy to have further discussions with this group into the future around my project and any opportunities to collaborate with interstate partners.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Troy.